Hi, today I will be discussing the two major philosophers of David Hume and Immanuel Kant. Each of these guys have made a significant breakthrough from other theorists in putting forward a morality that doesn't require a higher being or a god for a man to recognize his moral duty. Uh, for Immanuel Kant, the notion of duty is central to his moral philosophy. This is to determine what to do and what not to do, based on principles derived from a categorical imperative of the moral law and is discovered by a reason. By reason, what to do does not depend on what is, for what is in nature is morally neutral. For Kant, goodwill is the only source of morality. It is rational, and it is governed by duty. According to Kant, theoretical reason can explain the world, but it can't really tell us what to do. The theoretical reason is mainly positive, while the practical reason can be normative. Uh, for it is according to Kant, which governs the action. Kant also argues that practical reason must tell us what to do and not feel immorality. Thus, where the will to choose principles, goodwill, choose the right principles. Act, act morally is not a reflex, but rather an object of practical reason, involving deliberation and often forced to compel his own nature, regardless of his feelings. Hume's ultimate goal in his endeavors was to undermine abstruse philosophy by focusing on the aspect of reason. Hume kind of showed there were limitations to philosophy by focusing on this aspect of reason. Since he did not know the limits, he proposed to use reason to the best of his ability. But when he came to a boundary, there was a limit. He conjectured that we have to study reason to find out what is beyond the capability of reason. David Hume and Immanuel Kant were to me, the most important philosophers of the 18th century. Both still have followers today. In ethics, they are usually seen as opposites. Hume was a skeptic who denied that there are moral truths. Ethics is from feeling, not reason. Kant was a rationalist with a rigid system of moral truths. Ethics is based on pure reason. Connecting the two gave one understanding of both truths and moral duties. The ethics of Immanuel Kant is often contrasted with that of David Hume. Hume's methods of moral philosophy is experimental and empirical. Kant emphasizes the necessity of grounding morality in a prior principle. Hume says that reason is properly a slave to the passions, while Kant bases morality in his conception of a reason that is practical in itself. Hume identifies such feelings as benevolence and generosity as proper moral motivations. Kant sees the motive of duty, a motive that Hume usually views as a second best or a fallback motive, as uniquely expressing an agent's commitment to morality and thus as conveying a special moral worth to actions. Although there are many points at which Kant and Hume's ethics stand in opposition to each other, there are also important connections between the two. Kant shared some important assumptions about morality and motivation with Hume, and had, early in his career, been attracted and influenced by the sentimentalism of Hume amongst other philosophers to say. For Hume, reason is not involved in morality. By Kant's, According to Kant, the man is rational. The man is a rational being who has an autonomous will, and reason itself determines a moral law. While Hume, again, based on a sense of morality, Kant establishes a categorical imperative in order to remain faithful to the moral law of reason discoveries. For my part, I argue that morality based on feelings is not an appropriate way to judge what is moral and immoral, precisely because the reasoning is not for nothing, and the error is easily committed to this. therefore immoral to what is moral. Reason alone is the element Kant believes motivates moral actions rather than Hume's senses. Kant also differs from Hume on the concept of human will. The essential difference between Hume and Kant that affected their whole thinking on the matter of morality was each one's own beliefs about the autonomy of the will. Again, Hume believed that reason is primarily a slave of the passions. Morals excite passions and produce or prevent actions, and reason is unimportant in this equation. The moral theory of Hume was based on his belief that moral theory of Hume was based on his belief that reason alone can never cause action. Hume proclaimed that virtue is always accompanied by a feeling of pleasure, and vice by a bad feeling or pain. We are compelled to commit a virtuous action because it creates a pleasant feeling, and we avoid doing a vicious act because it will cause pain or a bad feeling. Hume's moral theory is virtue-centered morality rather than the natural law morality. On the other hand, we have Kant, who uses deontological ethics to base his morality on reason alone. Kant divides the world into two classes: beings with reason, which are like human beings with reason and a will like humans, and things that are considered inanimate and do not possess these qualities. The first class, or humans, are independent of beings with their own purpose, having the capacity to reason and determine their own actions. The second class of inanimate things, like rock or trees that don't possess reason or will, do not require the consideration in our deliberations about what goals should be or the means to achieve them. There were a few minor disagreements betwixt the two. Although from the concept of human will and its influence with morality, they somewhat, although bouncing off of each other, I've seen them, from my understanding, they usually bounce off of each other, to say. In context of saying that I feel as though they have a lot of work put together